Some recent ICE arrests have raised concerns even amongst conservatives and Trump supporters. So here's what we're going to do, a little bit different today. We're going to basically tell you some of these stories, and then we want you to comment. So we're going to tell you the news because this is a very, very controversial subject with a lot of heated opinions. So Billy and I are going to discuss a couple cases, and then we want you in the YouTube comments to tell us your thoughts. So Billy, let's start with the pastor in South Florida.
Yeah, this one there's so many factors. And what complicates this story is you're talking about, like you said, a pastor, right? You got this preacher. He had this small Hispanic church there in Florida. He has been deported to Guatemala. He was here for 2 decades on American soil. He's 42 years old. He's married and has 5 children. Now, those details are important because they're just the facts of the story. His name is Murillo Ambrosio, and he pastored a 50-member church. It was called Iglesia de Santidad Vida Nueva. And he told the Tampa Bay Times that he was one of 100 Guatemalan immigrants deported from New Orleans through a charter flight after being arrested in mid-April. Now, he was apparently arrested during a routine check-in at U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement. And he entered the U.S., and this is also an important detail, illegally after fleeing Guatemala, but he was 15 years old at the time. So you have a situation where he's a 15-year-old teenager and has been in Florida more than 20 years, so clearly wasn't of age at the time that he came over the border, but did enter the country illegally. And he was apparently, and this is where this gets murky, we don't have all the details, but he was apparently allowed to remain in the U.S. because of a stay of removal, which basically delays your removal. It required him to meet each year annually with federal agents, and he had to refrain from committing any crimes. This is, again, I'm not an immigration attorney. It gets a little complicated, but people who have these stays of removal, it seems what happens is every year they go back, they meet with ICE, they're then allowed to stay for another year, right? Then they have to go back again and meet, but it's provisional. The U.S. government can at any point apparently say, you can no longer stay, right? But again, he was allowed to stay. So it doesn't sound like he was living in the shadows. He was meeting, but for whatever reason, after getting married, having these children and being here, becoming a pastor, he was apparently deported. And just to give you one more piece, because I know there's a lot of details here, he was removed according to a representative from ICE because he had entered the country illegally. That was the reason for the removal.
Mm-hmm. So again, we want to hear your thoughts. So usually Billy and I give our opinions on a lot of subjects, but with this one, we genuinely want to know what you think. So please add your comments. Let's be respectful. There is a lot of very heated opinions. I have my opinions. My dad, for example, is a legal immigrant from the country of India. Basically, my entire family is legal immigrants from India. I just had a cousin here who, had to wait in India for years. This is a guy who has a bachelor's and a master's from American universities, but had to go back to India to do the process correctly. So there's a lot of, even saying that, I can already feel the comment section where it's like, you know what? I'm gonna stop talking, Billy. But I can understand the anger and the frustration on both sides of this issue. I live here in Southern California. A lot of pastors are Hispanic. Basically, my entire community, half of them are Mexican. And so this hits really, really close to home. People feel a certain way when they see abuelos being deported back to countries. And this one in particular that you're talking about, Billy, is a pastor who's been here the majority of his life with kids in the church. So it gets really, really, really dicey. So unlike most videos, again, we don't want to give our opinions. We want to hear your opinion. So we have one more to talk about. And this one, I think, it's interesting how complex and nuanced this situation can become because of the details involved. Let's talk about the idea of Iranian pastors, or Iranian Christians at least, fleeing for religious persecution reasons. Billy, tell us that story.
Yeah, this particular story is interesting because there's a pastor out in California who he came legally to the country as a refugee, an Iranian refugee, and he is running a church that has Iranians in it. And some of those people have applied for asylum in the U.S. and A couple of those people, two of them, in fact, were arrested, at least two of them. They have a 3-year-old, I believe. And so this pastor witnessed that arrest and has been speaking out about it to various outlets. We actually will have an interview with him about that. So again, he's here legally, but the two people in his church with their 3-year-old, they were essentially waiting. From what I understand, they were here as refugees trying to achieve refugee status, and they were detained. And we do not know the details of why they were detained. One of the big questions here, and that particular situation, there's a couple of things. We just had this issue with Iran, right, America, where we were bombing Iranian nuclear facilities. And you start to wonder, is that one of the reasons why maybe ICE became stricter, if they did, around people who were here, not necessarily as citizens, trying to sort of make sure that there weren't these extremist factions here? We don't really know. Is there some other element in the background of these individuals? I've been told that there's not, that would have led to this. Also, I have heard that it is common practice that even if you have been released and you're waiting for asylum, that the government can hold you until you have a hearing on that, right? That you have to go through that hearing before and be given asylum before you can be released. So there are times, for various reasons, the government chooses to do different things. The point is, this pastor is speaking out. He said he felt it was very much like what he faced in Iran, the fear of authorities, right? Which is going to spark frustration among some who would say, but they're not here legally. But again, they are here fleeing persecution, purportedly, from what they were facing in Iran. So there's so many different details in these cases, but that is one of the latest ones that we've seen.
Mm-hmm. It's been interesting seeing, kind of anecdotal evidence of certain conservative outlets, Trump supporters, taking a step back and just, there has been a, wait, is this okay? Should we be doing this? Is this going too far? Again, we want to hear your thoughts. So add them in the comments, because I think there is a lot of factors when it comes to understanding individual cases. And Billy, you've given us just two of them, but we wanted to give you the news and let you decide. So as for now, Billy, thank you so much for your time, my friend.
Thank you.